You're listening to Wild Things and Wild Places, a Muley Fanatic Foundation podcast that aims to discuss issues and efforts related to the Muley Fanatic Foundation mission, the conservation of mule deer, furthering the sport of hunting, and sound wildlife management.
Everybody knows I'm a Muley Fanatic.
It's time for Wild Things and Wild Places. And here's your guide, Joshua Coursey.
And welcome to another episode of Wild Things and Wild Places. And talk about wild places, we are actually recording this from a very wild place. And where I'm referring to is South Central Texas, hill country as it's commonly referred to by locals. And before we get into it, let me introduce a couple of guests that are joining me this morning. I've got Dave Kavanaugh, who's actually from Virginia. Him and I happen to be in Texas. And not a guy who believes in coincidence or happenstance. Dave, maybe before we introduce Joe, talk about how this came to be, because this was not our plan in coming to Texas.
Not at all. And from a personal standpoint, as a kid, you flip through a lot of magazines, you look at these whitetails, and Texas was in every magazine at some point or another. And as a young kid, it became a bucket list to go experience. So when you called one day and said, "Hey, Dave, why don't you get out of your comfort zone over there on the East Coast and join me down in Texas for a hunt?" I was all over it. So happy to be here.
Nomad Hunts is what we're going to talk about today. And that was not on the radar for Dave and I through a connection through another friend, Brian Stevens, who had referred an outfit for us to have an opportunity to come to Texas and create a memory together in the field. Perennial outfitters. We were trying to find some lodging. We flew into San Antonio. We were going to be based in or surrounding the area of Rock Springs, Texas, which we didn't know existed. And lodging is limited, to say the least.
And sold out during hunting season.
So you did a little legwork on the old computer and looked for Airbnbs.
Yeah, it popped up, and it had this mystique to it, and it had this hunter feel to it, and I didn't want to share all that with you. I wanted to have it be a little surprise. And it would really, honestly, Joe, there was no reference that I could see in Airbnb about what we were stepping into, okay? So it was a surprise to both of us when we got here, working through your wife, Debbie, on her Airbnb platform. She provided a wonderful opportunity to spend a night, and then we pull in the driveway. Once we got here...
Yeah, it's off the beaten path.
Yeah, but no, that's a good thing, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But, once we got in here, and the next morning we woke up, and Josh went out in the yard, and here's this guy coming across the field in camo, and lo and behold, we got to meet Joe and his operation.
Yeah,
Nomad Hunts.
And when I say I'm not a man who believes in just coincidence, I think the interactions you have with everybody that you come across is for a reason. I was waiting eagerly that morning, knowing that this is, first, we were greeted by Gracie, but I knew this was not just an Airbnb. It's isolation, it's remoteness, and then looking around, seeing the cooler, seeing the meat hanging pole. I said, there's a hunting operation here. And Joe had already been out before sunrise that morning, pulled in and decked out and head to toe in camo, carrying a camera. I thought, man, we got to meet. And struck up a great conversation, knowing we were still going to have to leave that day for our other commitment. The impression and just the genuineness of being able to have that visit that morning left a lasting impact where we said we need to circle back if we could. We got our business taken care of, still had a day before our return flights. Let's see if we can reach back out and come back. And here we are, and it is with great pleasure and honor to be able to have the immediate connection that we've been able to make in such a short amount of time. But welcome Joe Reed, owner and proprietor of Nomad Hunts.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. The pleasure is ours, gentlemen. I don't think, like you said, that this was a chance meeting. You guys talk about the Airbnb and the separation between the hunting business and the Airbnb side of it, and I leave that up to my wife, and typically don't really overextend myself to reach out to the Airbnb guests because we don't know where they're coming from in their social aspect of life, and I don't want to force any hunting views on someone who's not open to it. So I generally pull back, but when I pulled in that day, it was just an immediate, I'm walking over to introduce myself, and here we are. We've been blessed along the way to see it to where it is right now.
Yeah, I'm not ever hunting out of the state of Wyoming, another state, and certainly Texas is, as you mentioned, Dave. If you're going to have that bucket list item, Texas just resonates.
If you're a
just
hunter,
the ruggedness and what is offered in Texas. Nomad Hunts, It is a hunting operation, and let's talk about it. What it is, why it is, how it is, where it's placed, and what I have come to see in just our travels here, the 2-hour trek from the airport in San Antonio. Hunting is a big industry where you're at.
It's the driving force in this area. All of this land out here used to be sheep and goat country. It was not adequate for anything else. And as from the 1940s to present, it has simply migrated away from sheep and goats and livestock to the exotic animal business, and the native animals we have here just are front and center. That's what drives this area. Growing up in southern Michigan, Texas was off my radar. I was hunting the whitetail and the soybeans, the alfalfa, and the corn. I'd have that 3 months of my hunting season, and then the rest of my year I was just moping around looking for something to do. And it was totally by happenstance in my late 20s, early 30s that I even had Texas on my radar whatsoever. You think about Texas and the conservation aspect of it, all that was South Texas is where the large properties, the King Ranch, all of these guys down there, they were the forefront of conservation when it came to whitetail. And they paved the market for it. But right here in the hill country of Texas, our climate is perfect for over 140 different species of native and exotic animals that we can raise because of our temperate climate. It's the perfect fit for those animals.
And when you talk about exotic species, there are places that we have driven, your place included. You come here and you see what is known in the hunting community.
High fence.
And that's absolutely essential to be able to allow this industry to be able to thrive.
100%. Without our high fences, we could not do what we do. High fences are the thorn in the side of a lot of guys.
Especially if you're not
From here, you get the whole adage, the canned hunt, we're hunting in a zoo. I can tell you right now, that is not the case. These animals pattern us as much as we pattern them. They know that piece of property much better than we do.
And when we're talking piece of property,
Yeah, you're
the other
talking-
thing is
you're not
you got to
talking
realize
small
this
places.
is landscapes.
You're not talking small places. Your average hill country ranch is 640 acres, which is 1 square mile. We've got, I can take you down to George West right now, 15,500 acre place, all encompassed by high fence. You're talking massive properties that are just, it's unfathomable to think about the amount of miles of fence that go into these projects.
And at no point do you ever feel like you're hunting a zoo.
You can hunt these places and never even see the high fence. Now, some of your smaller places, your mom and pop places, are just that. They're smaller. But these deer still know that place better than the hunters. And they will actually turn into a difficult hunt.
I will tell you, I'm in that camp. I'm a guy who has heard about high fence hunting, not just in Texas. I know of an operation in Idaho where folks have harvested extremely large bull elk, 400-inch plus bull. And there is that connotation that comes with it when you know that you're killing a 400-inch bull or greater like that. There's an asterisk that goes next to it in your mind because it was within captivity or a high fence hunt. And
There is a certain amount of that, but it has its place. We actually get quite a few guys from out west that have spent their entire life running the mountains, chasing that elusive 375, 400-inch bull, and they get to a point where their bodies can no longer do it. That desire for them to shoot that animal is still there, but physically they can't do it. They reach out to us. We put them on that bucket list animal. They're more than happy to do it, and it's an enjoyable hunt. For the guys that just cross it off the board and say, nope, high fence, canned hunt, they need to open their eyes and at least give it one opportunity, because it may change the way they think of high fence hunting.
I can tell you that what has given me a different optic to this industry is that something you just touched on a few minutes ago is when you talk about, and let's face the fact, we love hunting. And it is, as you mentioned, a very narrow window within your year. You think about it, you dream about it, you ruminate upon it with great priority throughout the year. But that window is very narrow. And what I see and what has broadened my view of this industry and the operations that are within this area of hill country, Texas, is that you are extending. If you love hunting, you are extending your hunting opportunity. You are now putting yourself in a position where how many hunting opportunities do you have in May and June? In general, unless you're doing this
nationwide,
not very many.
You come to Texas, that opens up another 3 months of hunting right there. So with your standard, basically your whitetail season, you've got what, 3 months if you're into archery, crossbow, and firearm. You come to Texas, you can hunt 365 days a year, and we can find a species that has horns and or antlers during any point of the year.
Yeah, and Dave, I know I can speak for you on this. When you love hunting, you just always want to be hunting. It doesn't always work, but there's a niche here. And this has been an incredible experience for us to have the opportunity to visit with you, to understand this industry. When it's foreign to you, you formulate ideas and notions that are just shared by observation, but not necessarily the source. We're going to the horse's mouth, if you will, on this. I think the other thing for me that has made such an impression, and I had heard this before, Joey had the opportunity to come to Texas a couple years ago, brought back some axis deer, and last night, upon arrival here to stay with you and your family, you had indicated through text message that you were having bacon-wrapped axis fillets for dinner and just wanted us to know the menu. And boy, you talk about mouth-watering. Is there a finer piece of meat that you could eat?
There are comparable and close, but I think by far head and shoulders above anything else.
Dave and I were talking about this last night when we went back to the bunkhouse. The deer was not on the radar. A high fence hunt was not on the radar. We're in your man cave here, and there are 4 beautiful axis deer mounts on the wall.
Something about the axis just cannot get away from. Raised in the Midwest, man, whitetail was king. And I love the whitetail. I will never step completely away from whitetail. But when you eat axis compared to whitetail, it changes your mentality on what you want to shoot. And then for me, axis, being that you can hunt them in the summertime, it drives me. When you're out there and the sun's coming up and you hear the axis bucks start screaming, there's just something about it. It hits me at a core level. It's more of like an elk hunt to me than it is a whitetail hunt. You come to Texas to do an axis hunt, leave your whitetail knowledge where it came from, because axis are completely different.
So when you mention year-round, certainly
they reproduce all year round. The majority of our bucks are going to be in what they call a summer rut. But an axis deer will actually lose his horns about the time of his birthday. So you have a constant, all throughout the year, you can find bucks that have shed, are starting to grow, in velvet, hard horn. Those does will, the time they have their baby, they will immediately go back into cycle. So there's a constant breeding cycle with these axis that allows them to breed and have babies year round. The cool thing is most of our bucks are summer bucks. I want to say 85 to 90% of our herd is going to go into the rut during the summertime. The remaining percentage will be winter bucks and have a winter rut. It's a little more difficult to find those bucks during the winter. It can be done, but like I said, 85 to 90% of our bucks are hard-horned in the summertime, ruts full kicking, and it is interesting. It is interesting to say the least. It's more like an elk where you've got one buck, 20, 30 does are his harem. He's in there. He's chasing other bucks out. You've got satellite bucks coming in. It is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I know this is just one of many species that you have. It's the one that I think just I'm very curious about, but it's one of many. And when you say exotic, there are probably folks that maybe have thought about Africa, but then when you talk and you couple in the costs associated with going to Africa, the travel, Dave, you've been to Africa. You certainly are probably more versed than anyone, at least here today, that I could talk to and know as a resource. When you go to Africa, it is not necessarily the hunt that is the financial whereabouts that you need to navigate, but it is the travel, it is the taxidermy.
It's the logistics, it's all that stuff. It's a freight to get your animals back home after they've been mounted, and maybe not the resources, and they could do it locally. And when I say locally, hop on an airplane, 2 hours, 3 hours, you're here.
Correct. And you're not dealing with the import permits. You're not dealing with the layovers in customs with your trophies. Some of the animals we have to deal with CITES permits, which is U.S. Fish and Game. But of course, that's all lined out before you book your hunt. We do have a few species that are on that CITES list, but those ranchers have already got with you.
Yeah, I found it exceptional yesterday in the trek that we had and was playing tourist, just driving around, seeing the country, learning what we could about an area that we're not from, but springbuck, bleesbuck, wildebeest, you name it. And these are all animals that to me resonate with a great Africa safari. You mentioned it earlier that there are over 140 exotic species within this region of this enormous state with this vast landscape. I knew the connection that could be had in very short order of us visiting just in the brotherhood of being hunters and loving hunting. And so I'm hopeful that this opportunity to be able to visit will convey to others that here is a trustworthy resource. Here is someone who is knowledgeable, who understands not only conservation, but conservation through commerce. There has been a great benefit to this industry beyond the borders of Texas. When you look at, for example, the aoudad, I was reading in some literature last night in the Airbnb, the buck house that you have, and I found it to be extremely fascinating that the aoudad from North Africa, there are 7 times more aoudad in Texas than there are in North Africa, which is now an endangered species there.
Correct. And you want to talk about quality. So there are some guys now that I've been reading on some of their posts on social media where you can go to Morocco and hunt these animals in their native range, but the quality of animals that they have over there are half of what we have here in Texas. We've got them started here, and what used to be a 30-inch trophy is now a 35-inch trophy. As you put a dollar value on an animal, it becomes worth more and guys want to hold on to it. There was a point where the aoudad were looked at as they were called pasture rats. Shoot them all, they compete with the whitetail, they this, they that. But now that the cost of your wild sheep has gone through the roof, this is what they consider the poor man's bighorn hunt. You get out here in West Texas, you're in the big mountains. It's as legit as a bighorn hunt, but it's a quarter of the price. So guys are actually getting into the sheep hunting because of the aoudad out there.
And if that type of hunting experience where you need to enjoy the suck, you're going to earn it.
It's a hard climb, hard territory, and a hard animal to get on. We've got them here in the hill country in our high fence ranches that guys will come out 3 or 4 days and they have to add 2 or 3 days to their hunt because they're that difficult to actually harvest.
Nomad Hunts, what are your offerings?
So Nomad Hunt offers all of the native and exotic species that we can possibly find in the hill country. I think we talked about 140 different species. If we don't have it on our ranches, we can find it and put it on a ranch. And we've been 10 years building our relationships with people. We've weeded out the bad and work only with the good. And that has been a blessing and a bonus for our business.
The staple hunt with Nomad Hunts?
A lot of guys are going to say whitetail, but it's my exotics. It's my black buck. It's my axis. That is our bread and butter hunt. The axis hunts are our bread and butter.
There's something about that animal, Dave, that is just...
I had my media guy, when we started this, he wanted to really push the whitetail. We sell quite a few whitetail hunts, but it always circles back around to our bread and butter is our spring and summer axis hunts. That's what guys come in to do.
In a time where they can't hunt anything else wherever they're from.
Or they'll come in for a whitetail hunt and leave booking an axis hunt, which is good. I can't speak highly enough about the axis. I'm hopelessly addicted to them.
I'm a firm believer, eat what you kill. That's how I raise my daughters. It's something that is important to me. Having that wonderful dinner last night and knowing the reputation that preceded it, I was looking for reasons to say, it's good. But man, I love pronghorn antelope. Some people don't. Elk is a staple at our house, so that's probably our prioritized protein for our diet because it provides a significant bounty with an elk, just the size of the critter. But that axis, it's everything that it is made up to be. Dave, what is it about the axis that has got you giddy? Because you were actually giddy last night.
So prior to us coming for dinner last night, Joe, 12 hours have elapsed now. I was the guy that said, and this is what I said to Josh yesterday, I don't want to shoot an animal unless it's native to the country.
Correct.
And it's an open space.
Yep.
Within 12 hours, that mindset is 180 degree flipped. So
in 12 hours. And unless we were here to see it, to interact, to know that, I don't know that I would have had a change of position myself.
It's funny how guys come in with a mindset and leave completely 180 degrees from where they came in. running this operation, a lot of what we do is on social media. And I will take all kinds of abuse from the anti-hunting community or those low fence guys who are hardcore, only low fence guys. And the number of times that I've offered these guys to come out, hey, come out and just see it. Come out and try it. It may change their opinion. And of course, not one single person has taken me up on that. It takes a guy like you to come in with a mindset, not throwing your mindset at me, but with that mindset of low fence, native game, not looking to hunt a preserve or a hunting ranch, to come in and see what we do and have an open mind and accept the fact that, hey, this is something I want to try because it's not what I expected it to be.
For me, I look at this, as we talked about earlier, an opportunity to extend your season
100%.
throughout the year. I also see another opportunity in this too, that I look at myself as part of my responsibility in life is to find my replacement in the hunting community.
Correct.
And that starts with kids.
It does.
Okay, can you share with us what your operation can offer for a younger child or a younger kid getting into hunting?
So we talked a little bit about my story. Growing up, Southern Michigan, never had been exposed to hunting. My father did not hunt, but his father did. And I was so enamored by the going down into the basement, seeing this little 6-point rack with the shotgun, because Southern Michigan was shotgun only during the time. They've since gone to the straight wall cartridges, but that is something I wanted to do. And that was never offered to me growing up, just simply because my parents did not want me to be exposed to that, which I respected, but I just kept pushing forward in my life. Getting a child involved in that, getting him off of that computer, off of that cell phone, getting him outside, teaching him woodsmanship is what I always wanted for my son and my grandson. They have since just moved down here. I now have the opportunity to raise that boy in this environment, which I think is going to be good for him on a personal and a spiritual level. But I also want fathers, want mothers to bring their kids out here. It's a safe environment that they can enjoy. It's a life skill and a life lesson that I think every young person needs to have. They need to be connected to what they're eating. And if they're not hunting, they're not connected to what they're eating. Gardening is fine, going to McDonald's is fine, but if you're hands-on, teach that child the respect of the animal and a purpose for hunting, not to just sit in a blind and shoot a 200-inch whitetail. I don't believe that parents should start their kids off that way. I think they should start them off with a spike, a doe. Let them work their way up to it so that child appreciates that. Several of my clients have brought their children in as just sitting on their lap while the father hunted, to putting that child on their first animal, and now that child is bringing us their child.
It's come full circle. Yeah.
And, at some point, we're going to turn this business over to my son and my grandson. That will be my legacy. And to me, a legacy is huge. I never thought it was going to be that much to me, but the older I get, the softer my heart gets and the more sentimental I become. And things like that mean things to me. Passing it on to the next generation is the greatest thing I can do for my family. I haven't spent my life, or this portion of my life, building what I have to just turn around and sell it. I want that to continue on to my son, my grandson, and then hopefully his kids, and make it that legacy.
The lineage of Joe Ree, yeah. That's admirable, Joe. I can tell you that it's been an eye-opener for me. An incredible exposure to something that was foreign to me. And I love hunting. If I can think of an opportunity when my wife and I, our children are grown and out of the house, and we start talking about needing a vacation or wanting to have a time and be exposed to something new and go on a vacation. I can tell you, and I don't know that my wife listens to all of my podcasts, so I'm probably safe at saying this, but wherever her idea might be in the future, and I can incorporate a detour to the route of travel to include a hunting opportunity, man, it just elevates my game of excitement for not being the guy who's not the vacation guy. But if I can incorporate a hunting trip as a part of that, it's a game changer for me, I can tell you that.
You've got some unique opportunities in Texas. You've got some unique opportunities in Hawaii. The axis deer are actually in Hawaii also. So if you can plan that trip to Hawaii, you can slide out and do your axis hunt. You can do your pig hunt, your sheep over there. Wife can sit on the beach and enjoy Mai Tais.
Yeah, my wife, she's a smart cookie. She has been on the Hawaii thing half dozen times over the last few years and she knows how to work me. She's no dummy. She knows her angle for Hawaii is Pearl Harbor.
Right.
She knows my love of our country, our freedom, our military history, at the ultimate sacrifice in those monuments. She knows. So anytime she talks about Hawaii, it's not the umbrella drinks and the sunshine. It's always, oh, you're going to love Pearl Harbor. I think the first thing I would say is know the industry and then ask, do you really know the industry?
Correct.
And how big this industry is in this part of this state. This is an enormous industry, and it is certainly the economic driver to many of the communities that we went through yesterday.
Clearly, yeah, hands down.
100%.
I went through Ingram? Was it the town? I
Yes,
think we've
yep.
seen multiple meat processors, multiple taxidermy shops. Hunting is welcomed in this
It's a
part of the
culture.
state.
It is.
It is truly a culture, and I think per capita, Ingram and Kerrville, that area has more taxidermists and meat cutting processors than banks.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
It's, and we're not short on banks or churches or chicken joints. There's a chicken restaurant on every corner in Kerrville, but there's also a meat processor right around the corner and a taxidermist. So it is the driving market in
And
this
it's
area.
not seasonal. It's year-round.
It's year-round,
That's,
365. You talk about the difference between conservation and commerce. The high fence industry in this area is worth billions and billions of dollars. The market for animals continually is on the increase. When everything else is on the decrease, the market for exotics still holds strong. The breeding, the hunting, the raising of these animals facilitates all of the work in this area.
I think the other thing that upon that same topic, Joe, that is attractive is we all have areas where we would like to hunt, but the limitation is being able to draw the opportunity to hunt or to be lucky enough to secure those licenses. That's a non-factor when you talk about exotic species.
Correct. You can let's talk about one in specific, the Markhor ram. That is a Middle Eastern animal. That is Afghanistan, Tajikistan,
Places I'll never go.
places that aren't safe to go. You're talking about an animal where there's 1,500 to 3,500 in their native range. If a U.S. hunter has the opportunity to go over there, he's going to spend $150,000, $175,000, $200,000 on this animal. There's no other place in the world you can hunt them except in the state of Texas at a considerably cheaper price with the same quality, far outnumber what they have in their native range. And that's not through any fault of these countries that have them, because their conservation efforts over there are absolutely outstanding. But when you're talking about the civil unrest in that country, the amount of money it costs you to get over there, your import permits, and your fees to the government,
Not to mention
language barrier, all of that. You take all of that into factor, and Texas becomes the appealing place. The native home range, except for maybe the 1% of the people who actually can do it, Texas is where it's at to hunt that animal.
So when we talk about the economics of hunting high fence, we had the opportunity this week to go into Walmart and pick up a hunting license for mule deer, for whitetail.
Yep.
And then we saw the cost to get a license to hunt.
If you come to the state of Texas and you hunt, you're a non-resident, you're going to spend $315 on your license for your whitetail. If you come to hunt exotics, you're going to spend $48 on a 5-day hunting license.
That opens up a lot more doors and a lot more opportunities for people, certainly in the economic times that we're dealing with. It's a huge plus.
We have seen an uptick in our cost of exotics. When I first started this business 10 years ago, you're looking at an axis buck hunt was $1,500. Landowner was happy, hunter was happy, outfitter was happy with the popularity of them. And we had a freeze in 2020 that devastating.
ice storms.
Power outages, the hard freezes, thousands of black buck, thousands of other exotics perished. We took a little bit of heat from people who were like, you shouldn't have introduced that animal to that area where they weren't capable of blah, 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 blah. It was hit and miss. Some ranches got devastated. Other ranches were untouched. You talk about your cedar breaks, your cover for those animals. Guys that went in there, they want the perfect pasture. They go through, they clear out their pasture, and it's gorgeous. You got the tall grass, you got the big oaks, and you can see all the way underneath there. They lost everything. Provide the right cover and the right feed for your animals. We didn't lose what the other ranches lost. But that helped drive the cost up. Also, this area is becoming very popular for people to migrate into. So the cost of animals has risen because the trappers, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's driving the market on it. People want them on their property. They want to hunt them, but supply and demand. You start getting people that want these animals and the supplies here, cost is going to rise. Another thing we're talking about is government overreach. Texas Parks and Wildlife, CWD, and our whitetail has really turned a lot of our breeders off to the whitetail game. Texas Parks and Wildlife has requirements. Texas Animal Health Commission has requirements, legal requirements for CWD testing. They're making the hoops so hard to jump through and cost so much, and there's a chance you're going to lose your investment. Wildlife that is exotic is owned by us ranchers. When you're talking about a native animal like a whitetail, the state of Texas owns those animals. I respect that. So a guy goes out and he spends $1 million on his whitetail herd. He's got the greatest deer in the entire state. One CWD positive test, the state can come in and wipe out your entire herd. Zero reimbursement to the landowner who has invested millions of dollars in this herd. That's freaking people out. Guys want out. They're getting out of the whitetail game. They're going to the exotic game. Organizations like the Exotic Wildlife Association have started pedigree breeding, baseline, DNA tested pedigrees for exotic wildlife like your axis and your black buck. We took the initiative this year, jumped in with some amazing breeder bucks, and we're going to try to get in on the ground level with this and see where this whole breeding thing with the axis goes. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's a fascinating conversation, and it's a fascinating topic in general of the moving parts within this. I'm going to have to digest a lot of this because it's so new. I've never thought of ownership of critters like this. I've been blessed. That's all I can attribute it to. I've been blessed to live in a place where critters weren't, the dominion of critters was on a wild landscape. And that pursuit, and that's what drove that desire. But I recognize now, if anything, I recognize how small that is where I live compared to elsewhere. And you look at the growing population of our nation at the turn of the 20th century, less than 100 million people. And here we are now, 130 years later, and we're 340 million people. And that expansion and those rugged landscapes that have no longer become what they were. And at the same time, I also value the heritage of the hunter within the hunter and gatherers as a species of human, and that role above all. I know that role is of great responsibility, and there's a heritage there that is so darn important to me.
There is. When it's a landowner and a high fence owner, I think we're obligated by God when we put a high fence around our animals to take care of our animals. Most people think of it, oh, you're just raising that animal to shoot and it's heartless. No, my heart and soul goes into these animals out back. When they're sick, I'm doing everything I can to get them better. And it's not just from the financial aspect of it. They mean something to me. You met Gracie. She's a hybrid sheep. She's half domestic and half wild sheep. And she was one of two, a twin. Mother apparently couldn't handle two twins, so she left Gracie to the side. I could have let her stay out in the pasture and just wither away to nothing, and I would have been within my legal rights. On a personal level, I couldn't do that. We scooped her up, we took her in, we made her a bottle baby, and now she's the life of the party. We had to put our dog down of 14 years this last year, and that killed me. I told my wife I don't ever want another dog. Gracie has filled that void. I don't need another dog because we've got one.
And she's getting ready to bring more grandbabies into your life.
She is. But to step out there and rehabilitate that animal that would not make it if I had left it out there, it's as close to reality as you can possibly get. It is the life and death of what we do. And we give every animal the best opportunity we possibly can.
You know, I'm a better person for seeing it firsthand and being able to have the visit, to understand the industry, to understand what you're doing. Yeah, the notion of being able to extend your hunting season to a year-round potential opportunity that's certainly, you would never find an argument for me on a basis like that. Let's talk about how it works with someone, being that you're not putting in for a draw, you're not hoping and waiting and anticipating tag results for this.
Most of what we do is either socially media driven. Most of the time it's a guy reaching out to me off of a post that I make, and he's saying, hey, I see you've posted this animal. What are the details? And then I get with that individual and I say, hey, this is the cost of our hunt. This is what the cost of your license is going to be. Here's what you're going to get with that. You're going to get the 3 days, 2 nights, or 4 days, 3 nights. Here's all the details. If they're interested at that point after our conversation, we'll email them a hunt contract and a liability waiver. Everything is broke down on that document. If they agree to it, they sign the waiver, we get the deposit, we set the dates in the calendar, and then we're go time.
If you're not aware, this is a guided hunt? Or here's
so,
the property, I'm turning you loose?
No, so we don't do that. Liability restrictions prevent us from doing that. Every piece of property that I go on, I carry $2 million worth of liability insurance. Not a single rancher out there that I know of or that I work with is going to just say, here's the gate code, go in there, do your thing. It takes years and years to build that relationship with the landowner, not only from the trust factor, but from the liability issue.
Yeah.
In today's society, there are so many people that are so quick to sue. They want what you have, and they don't want to do the legwork to get it themselves, so we have to mitigate that. So most of our hunts are fully guided. I'm going to be with you 24/7, show you the animal that you're looking for, and make sure you're successful with that. Because I can't tell you the number of times I've sitting in a blind where a hunter makes a shot, they're the one shooting. They don't even know if they hit them. And it's up to that video camera or my eyeballs to pick up whether they hit that animal or not. And to go to that spot and find the blood or find the hair or find the total miss. All of our hunts are fully guided.
I think there is a reputation that precedes particularly Africa hunt opportunities. You go over there with the notion of these are the 3 animals. You get there in the heat of the moment. Other critters, there is this opportunity that is, let's put a dollar figure on what that would cost, in addition to the 3 that you may have came here in mind of being able to take. Is that similar?
It's very similar. It's no different than...
And does it happen a lot?
It happens all the time. We had a wonderful family out of Virginia. 84-year-old hunter brought his entire family. Came for an elk, came for a 200-inch plus whitetail. Saw an axis, left with an axis.
And in that moment in the blind or in the field, it's what's that going to cost? That's the conversation, right?
They walked in, they had no idea what even an axis was, just like you. You walked in and you're like, what is that? And conversation led to one thing, and he's, I need that in my life. So made a phone call, went down the road, put him in the blind, and he shot an absolute hammer of an axis. Now they're coming back next year for a red stag. What was totally off radar, now that they see it, that it opens up the opportunity for hunting other species. Same thing with you. You came down here for free range whitetail. Both shot absolute hammer whitetail, and now you're like, I need to check this axis thing out.
Yeah, no, that's real. I think the other thing that this also impresses upon me that I think has great value and meaning to me individually is that red stag you just mentioned, and that's what kind of triggered this thought in my head is that is a bucket list item.
Yep.
And is it realistic? It's probably not, but you have to have a goal. You have to have those dreams. And the older I get, hence this trip is a perfect example of that, the more value and meaning it has for me beyond the harvest or the take is the sharing of the experience.
Camaraderie.
And when you look at some of those other places that you may have, red stag, for example, New Zealand, that idea of being able to have those experiences, it's going to be very limited on who would be able to go with you. Certainly, but when you think about something like this and having that time together in the field, this actually becomes realistic. That we could, the people we love and are the dearest to us, we could share in these moments without breaking the bank or mortgaging the house.
Absolutely. When I bought my initial business from a gentleman, he always put all his hunters in hotels. I'll pick you up at this time. I'll put you in the blind. I'll guide you. I take you back, and then I go do my thing, and I'll re-pick you up at this time. And I never wanted that. I wanted the deer camp feel. I wanted that sitting around a fire, the camaraderie you get with your hunters. Hunters are not just here, like you said, for the harvest. They want the full experience. When we bought this piece of property, I just think that this piece of property is going to bring everyone together. And it's doing exactly that. It's bringing guys to camp, and I can't tell you the number of times that 2 buddies will come. They show up, they do the hunt, and when they leave, they say, I'm bringing my wife next time. That's a compliment to my wife. I always say I want him to come as a client and leave as a friend. And that is 100% the truth. When a guy shows up as a hunter, brings his wife, brings his kids, that means we're doing something right. Yeah. He's comfortable enough with us that he wants to include his special people. his protected people, his family. You know, as a man, our family is, we protect them. We protect them. And when you've come to a place where you're comfortable with that and you open your arms to allow your family to come out here, that means we've done what we set out to do. To make people feel like friends, not just clients. We're not just taking money out of their pocket. We appreciate them, that they want to come and spend their hard-earned money and spend their time with their family, which could be vacation time somewhere else, here with us at Nomad Hunts.
A very good family, friends of mine that I think the Andersons, Rowdy, Lindsay, Basin, Delaney, Creed, and my buddy Rowdy, he's like me. He's not a vacation guy. He uses his vacation time from his employment for hunting season. But I know that there's always, when you have kids, exposure to new things, exposure to new places. Those pressures come with any parent with children, and this opportunity would be a great vacation for the Andersons. Let's talk about top 5 animals of Nomad Hunts. And I know there are multiple more. I know you have turkey. I know you have a ton of offerings that are available, but what are probably the top 5 most popular opportunities?
Axis, black buck, aoudad, fallow.
Surprising to hear you say turkeys.
Yep.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because high fence is not going to keep them in.
No, it does not. They fly over the top. They do it on a daily basis. Turkeys, Rio Grande turkeys, one of the, 5 subspecies of turkeys in the U.S. I think we have, the Osceola, the Eastern, the Merriam, the Rio Grande, the Goulds. I think those are your 5 here in the United States. And Texas hunting for turkeys is unbelievable. Hill Country's got great birds, absolute great birds. The cool thing is you can kill 4 turkey a year. You can kill 2 in the spring. You can kill 2 in the summer. If it has a beard, it's legal. Hen or tom. You can also use centerfire rifles to kill turkeys. So when deer season starts, you can turkey hunt, which is not something a lot of states offer. Now, most guys want to come in the springtime when they're thundering and gobbling and hammering away on the roost. That's when they want to come because it's the most energetic. But if a guy comes in for a whitetail hunt and he wants to add a turkey, the option is there.
You really make it easy to connect the dots, Joe. You got a big walk-in cooler. You got a meat hanging pole. Folks harvest something in the field that want the meat. You certainly have the expertise and the experience of what is the best way for those animals in field care, not only for table fare, but also taxidermy. You have those connections, those relationships. People want to be able to go home and have that memory that they can hang on the wall. This is a full circle operation.
It truly is. You talk about guys that they've got a limited amount of time. They fly into San Antonio. We can pick them up from the airport. We can drive them here. We also have the ability to do private plane or private jet. A personal friend is a private pilot, owns his own Cessna, also flies for a person with a huge jet. We can fly you across the United States, you and your entire family out here if you want. It's cost prohibitive to a lot of people, but the option is there. When they get here, we work with some local meat processors that will do expedited meat processing at no additional charge for our hunters. We can drop off a deer. The next day, that deer will be processed, wrapped, and frozen. That animal can also be shipped to anywhere in the United States for a cost. But the option of a guy flying in, shooting his trophy, getting back on the plane, flying home, and having his meat shipped to him is available.
I know that just in the short visit and getting to know each other, you're certainly wired for what's the next challenge or obstacle that I need to overcome or try to overcome. Where's Nomad Hunts going from here?
So we've always been a small family-based operation, me and a few of my buddies guiding. Recently, we moved my son, Logan, down to help with the operation. We're going to be building his house, and he's going to jump into it both feet on fire. Kind of baptism by fire, if you want to call it that. He's going to jump into that. With my son coming down, we also brought my 2-year-old grandson. This is a legacy that I want to pass on to my family because I love a lot of the guys I guide with, but it's not their skin in the game and it's not their name on the business. And guys don't have the drive or the motivation that I or my son would have.
Or just the attention to detail of the little things, right?
Yep.
The difference between good and great is the little things?
Absolutely. Yeah. So when you put your passion and your heart and your soul into something, it means a little more to you.
Yeah, it does.
Sweat equity goes a long way. And some of these, I tell these guides all the time at the beginning of deer season, This is a marathon, not a sprint. Go easy. Sleep when you can. If you have a drink with your client, have one or two and ease away. Yeah. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And I'm not your mother. I'm not going to wake you up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Get working, boys.
Oh, it's been a real eye-opener, Joe, for me, and I am so glad this opportunity came up. Yeah, we talked about how the chance meeting it was, and I'm grateful that happened, and we're going to be in touch.
I'm looking forward to it. I think we do have to talk about faith in this. My journey through this has been, I think, God puts a passion in our hearts for something, and that's our driving factor. That is what we use as a tool to talk to other people about our faith in Christ. And that hunting bug is what I was wired with from day one. It's in the DNA. And it's a path that I had to put myself in, and I had to work my way to get to where I'm at. None of this, I didn't walk into an outfitting family. I didn't walk into a family with thousands of acres of property. This has been, I was implanted into this area of Texas. And with the blessing and the help of a lot of good people and a lot of hard work on my end and the good Lord upstairs, He's opened those doors of opportunity, guiding those paths to get us to where we are now.
I believe that to the core.
I could not have done what I've done on my own. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Amen, man. Amen to that. Yeah, that's why I said at the beginning, I don't believe even this opportunity to get to know you, to visit with you, to meet you, that initial greeting, that is not just by coincidence. I do believe that God opens doors for you, whether you choose to take a step or not. I think that all of us have that. And I think that's like faith. Faith is a free will of choice of your heart and an ability to make yourself, I think, probably the easiest and the best way when I describe that, when I talk to others about that maybe are curious on faith, is put yourself in your heart in a position to be that mound of clay that needs molding.
100%. And I think as men, it's difficult because we want to control every aspect of our life. We want to control the finances. We want to control our next step, our next path. We want to see things. And from a believer standpoint, faith is running on something you can't see.
Yeah.
It's blind faith.
Yeah.
It's blind faith that in the end, the man upstairs is going to put us where He wants us, because our story is written before we're ever conceived. He knows everything that's going to happen in our life. He put me here for this reason. At that moment in my life, I thought that was the end. That was the most devastating thing. But He used that to put me here to get me to where He wants me to be. And there used to be a time in my life where I'm like, all right, this is what I'm doing today. This is what I'm planning. This is how my day's going to go. And it's gotten to a point now where I don't wake up and say, all right, here's what we're doing today. I wake up and I ask, okay, where are we going today? Because co-pilot and navigator.
And a mindset to be vulnerable.
Yep. You have got to be open to that, because you shut doors that are open, they're not going to reopen. I think God puts things in front of us at specific times. And like you said, we have the choice to walk through that and have faith that He's going to put us where we need to be, or we can turn our back and go the opposite way. There's two paths, the easy way or the hard road. And most people want to do that hard road. They don't want to give control to something that they don't have control in themselves.
In our first meeting a few days ago, it was very clear to me that we shared a love of the faith.
Yep.
And our love of Christ and His orientation in our lives and how we walk and are navigated by that. It's a blessing.
It is.
It's been an incredible conversation. It's been an incredible opportunity, and I'm very thankful for you. I'm very thankful for your family. I think it's very exciting that you have your son and your grandson here. Continue this incredible thing that you've been blessed to be at the helm of, and it's a good thing. Best way to reach you, Joe, for folks?
So you can reach me through social media at Joe Reed on Facebook, Nomad Hunts on Facebook, or you can go to my website, which is www.nomadtxhunts.com, or you can reach out at 830-377-8698.
Okay, we'll be sure to include all of that information. Just remember, it's quick and easy. Nomad.tx, as in Texas, nomad.txhunts.com. Dave, final thoughts?
I think we've recapped a lot here, but again, a lot goes through my mind. I come back to kids. I come back to my 5.5-year-old grandson, think about opportunities to replace us as hunters.
100%.
And this is something that we should include in our thought process of where we want to go with hunting. I am a little bit grayer than some. So I think, yeah, thanks a lot.
At least you've retained your hair.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob.
Some of us are following challenged.
No, but
Not pointing any fingers.
No, but again, great chance to get to know you and your family. We were very fortunate to have done that.
Gentlemen, it was a pleasure. I'm excited about the whole Muley Fanatics Foundation stuff. That's exciting to me. We've got some stuff going on in Colorado where we've reached out to other organizations and haven't gotten much with those organizations. So I enjoy the fact that y'all are stepping out on your own with your own foundations to conserve our mule deer populations. I think that is going to be something that we can work together on in the future for our Colorado piece. And we'll talk about that at a later date, but I'm pretty excited about chatting with you guys about that as well.
And thank you for what you're doing here in Texas. The hunting heritage, we've covered it significantly, but it's very important that we be ambassadors for something that is so valuable. And you're doing that with this. And Nomad Hunts, first class.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right, another episode of Wild Things and Wild Places. Again, visiting with Joe Reed of Nomad Hunts. Check out that website. Get some of these visuals in your head as you're ruminating on this information and let this digest a little bit. nomad.txhunts.com. Till next time, happy trails.
And that wraps up another episode of Wild Things and Wild Places. But remember, the journey doesn't end here. Make sure you never miss out by subscribing. Whether you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, streaming us on our website, or following us on social media, subscribing is the best way to stay connected. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for more wild episodes.
Everybody knows I'm a muley fanatic.